Good afternoon. It is May the 12th, 2023, and we are in the final weeks of the Texas legislative session, and we needed to give you all an update on where things stand. Beeman Floyd is with me, our lobbyist. My name is Richard Moore. I'm Executive Director of Texas Community College Teachers Association. Thanks for taking a few minutes to join us for this discussion. Beeman, why don't you talk with us real quickly just about where we stand on funding. That was one of the key issues that we entered the session knowing was going to be a big set of issues for us to tackle.
Yeah, happy to do so, Richard. First of all, we are in the waning days of the legislative session, as Richard said. What you're hearing in the background is actually the House of Representatives doing its work. We have to monitor that more or less constantly now. In terms of the funding, the big funding bill, House Bill 8, has been passed by the House and is in the Senate. It's waiting for a hearing with the Senate committee. There's still plenty of time for that bill to be heard, but it's going to be, we think that they were waiting to clear out House business and waiting for the House to clear out House business and start hearing Senate bills before they really got to work with this bill. As far as we know, there's no particular opposition to the bill or any danger for the bill over there. It's simply the timing of the legislative session and the fact that House Bill 8 will be heard along with many other House bills in the Senate in the next 2 weeks.
And you'll see in previous videos that we put out that there are major changes in the way community colleges will be funded under this legislation. So have a look at the previous videos to get a summary of all that, but we're really moving more toward an outcomes-based funding model. And there is significant additional dollars thrown into this bill for this coming session. Let's talk a little bit about there's kind of a triumvirate of bills. We had the great fortune this session to have 3 low bill numbers to be dealing with, 16, 17, and 18. Why don't we go through those in reverse order? What's the state of play on those?
Sure. Senate Bill 18 is the tenure ban bill. You may recall that long before the session began, the Lieutenant Governor had announced an intention to ban tenure in Texas and filed a bill to that effect, which was passed by the Senate. That bill has now been heard, and just this morning was passed by a House committee. Now that said, the bill is radically different than its original form. The bill now preserves tenure and codifies the practices, some of the practices primarily of the University of Texas and Texas A&M University with regard to tenure review. So this is important to know that for those of you who are interested in tenure, that tenure is preserved and that the regulatory language in the bill is actually drawn from existing institutional policies. That being said, there was still a lot of testimony against the bills, both in terms of an intrusion of the state into institutional governance and in terms of some of the issues with the policies themselves that are being codified that many professors think are too vague and open the door potentially to professors having some of their rights compromised under tenure. So the interesting thing to note is that in the committee hearing, there were 70 some odd, I believe it was 77 witnesses against the bill, 0 neutral and 0 in favor. And yet the bill was passed. So in the coming weeks, it will go to the Calendars Committee in the House. And then if the Calendars Committee sets it, it will head to the House floor for the full floor debate.
TCCTA provided testimony on the bill in committee, and we've been working this issue very closely. It'll be a good issue for you to weigh in on because, as Beeman said, the legislation has been modified, we think, for the better, but it's still going to be something that, assuming it passes, we'll be dealing with in the upcoming interim. To see how these things are implemented and any further developments. So where are we on 17?
17 is the DEI bill. It has also changed pretty radically during the course of its journey through the legislative process. It started as a very faculty-centered bill with, you may recall, really draconic penalties for individual faculty members who were caught or accused of doing DEI, whatever that means. This is one of our criticisms of the bill. that there were draconian penalties associated with very vague ideas of what DEI is and what we're doing. The bill has been, as I say, modified substantially both in the Senate and the House. It now references DEI programs in the context of the institutions and the responsibilities of the boards of trustees or regents related to DEI. So it is not centered on faculty. However, it still bans DEI offices or other offices that perform the functions of a DEI office, and then offers a set of exceptions. There are very strong and clear exceptions related to coursework, research, performances, guest speakers on campus, and other exceptions. So as a teacher, the bill is pretty explicit, actually quite explicit, that you will not be accused of doing DEI in the context of your research or instruction. There are also now exceptions in the bill as of this morning related to grants and other funding that might require a DEI office, and granting the board's authority to have DEI programs that satisfy requirements related to grant funding and federal funding. There was a lot of concern raised during the debates on these bills that Texas banning DEI would make itself such an outlier in the way they were proposing to do so, that it would put some of our critical institutional and student funding at hazard. And so we have not seen that language yet. This bill was literally passed out of committee about 45 minutes ago as substitute language. And so we're going to take a good long look at that new language. Again, we have remained opposed to these bills because we think they are solutions in searches of problems. And the banning of a DEI office, even if you're able to keep doing functions related to student resilience and student safety and those things that we associate with DEI, it's just going to make it strange and weird to have to do those without accidentally or on purpose forming a DEI office in contravention to the law.
And that's something we've heard from our members on this issue. We've heard from members who love these DEI efforts and those that don't love it. But the concern that we've heard pretty consistently from members has to do with the state interjecting itself into these roles and getting that much in our business at the local campus level. And so that's really been the message that we've been delivering.
Yeah, and I think one of the messages is the unintended consequence, because the question is a recruiting women to STEM majors, is that DEI? And the answer is, in the definitions of the bill, yes, it is.
Yeah,
and so
there's unintended consequences and a lot of vagueness in the language.
Absolutely.
Now, what about the CRT bill? That's something else we went into the session knowing was going to be an issue.
Sure, that'd be Senate Bill 16. That bill had two parts. One was a sort of preamble part of that bill that talked about the purpose of the institution, and that was to pursue free inquiry and knowledge, free from other influences. It was sort of an academic freedom statement that was actually a pretty good statement. That statement was taken from Senate Bill 16 and incorporated into the latest version of Senate Bill 17, which is the bill we just talked about. And so that bill has passed the committee. The remainder of Senate Bill 16, the second section, which is the one that talks about compelling or attempting to compel a belief from a student and is very faculty-centered, that bill has yet to be heard. It was not scheduled for hearing last week with the other two bills. A hearing has been posted for this coming Monday for the House Higher Education Committee, and it's not posted on that agenda either, which means it is getting pretty sick in terms of the legislative process.
We're getting late in the process, and it may have stalled.
Right.
Now is a good time for you to contact your legislators on any of these issues, the funding or 16, 17, or 18. Let them know your thoughts on this legislation. Now is kind of crunch time, so let's take advantage of it and make sure that they understand the point of view of community college faculty around the state.
You bet.
Thanks for all you do. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks.